want to get your spouse to stop leaving his socks on the floor. Nagging isn't working. You want to get your staff to start using the new expense form, but the memo was ignored. How do you get where you need to be? The power of story is how you get your message across in an increasingly noisy and cluttered world. Story does the heavy lifting for you. As humans, our brains react naturally to stories, and writers and tellers of really good stories have used this very human reaction for centuries. And it only takes 4 steps. We need to have a main character that our listeners can identify with. Let's call this main character our good guy. A good guy is really the reason we keep on with a story, whether it's a movie, book, or just listening to someone talk. A good guy keeps our attention. She's the one that we can relate to. No matter what wild events happen, stories aren't about what happens to people. They're about what happens to people. And that's why the first step in telling a really good story is get a good guy. So, what kind of good guy do people want to hear a story about? You already know the answer to that. Your brain instantly assesses the hero of any story and makes a snap judgment about whether you like her or not. The best stories are about normal, unassuming people who, through the events that happen to them, discover they have hidden depths. Even if the hidden depths your good guy discovers is that, yes, she can properly fill out the new expense form without pulling out her hair. Unconsciously, you judge everything the good guy does by the snap judgment you've already made about her. If her actions fit in with your impression, she gets a pass. But if the good guy's actions are at odds with the impression you formed from what you've already heard about her, it breaks the magic, and you find yourself standing outside the story, probably not all that eager to get back inside. Just like a love affair, there's no story without desire. You can have the best, most identifiable, most sympathetic good guy, but if she just wants to sit around in her pajamas all day and eat Doritos, you're not going to have a really good story. For a story to move forward, the good guy needs to want something. She needs to want it enough to go out there and brave life and limb to get it, or risk humiliation, or even just be willing to fly in the face of public opinion. She needs motivation. Why is it important that your listeners identify with your good guy? Well, if she's not identifiable, the listeners will stop listening. We don't want that, of course, but there's more to it. When we hear a story with a good guy we can identify with, we tend to root for that good guy. That means we, as listeners, want what she wants. We want her to overcome her obstacles and reach her goals. We want her to succeed. You can have the best good guy in the world, filled with motivation and conflicting desires, but if nothing happens, no one cares. We've talked a lot about how stories aren't what happens to people, they're about what happens to people. And yes, the people in a story are the most important thing, but something still needs to happen. There need to be obstacles the good guy can overcome on the way to her goal. It's okay to use the worst-case scenario in your story. You're going to hear differently from other people. Don't listen to them. Tell them I said it was all right. The worst-case scenario is desirable, even. Not only will it get your listeners hooked and listening, it will also show them that actions have consequences and that it's in their power to avoid those consequences. And isn't this really what we're after? When we've really identified and connected with a good guy, we love to see her overcome an obstacle and make it a step closer to her goal. But we love even more seeing a new and bigger obstacle thrown at her. Your listeners want to see your good guy thrown around a bit. I've said it many times, and I'll say it again. Story isn't about what happens to people. It's about what happens to people. Story is how the good guy changes as a result of what happens. There's a time in the life of every good guy when, because of the situations she finds herself in, her old ways of doing things just don't work. They're out of date. She's changed so much that her comfortable methods and familiar habits need to fall away and be replaced by what's to come. Because of the stuff that happens, because of the experiences the good guy has, she changes permanently. Because your listeners really want to see how the good guy in a story changes, even if they don't know how much they want to see this, giving them a changed good guy will leave them with a sense of satisfaction with your story. Why is that? Well, mainly it's because of the simulator effect that stories have. When we listen to a story, our unconscious brains act as if the events are happening to us. This is how we get that risk-free experience from stories. So, if you have a likable, relatable good guy with a clear goal who changes as a result of her experiences, your listeners can also change without having to go through all the tough stuff. Your good guy does the heavy lifting for them. Because of that risk-free experience, listeners learn the lesson without the real obstacles. Hi there, how you doing? I'm author, educator, and gentleman Jim Jackson, and I hope you liked that little explainer video about the 4 steps of how to tell a really good story about absolutely anything. If you'd like more, of course, the book, How to Tell a Really Good Story About Absolutely Anything in 4 Easy Steps, goes into a lot more detail, a lot more depth. Also, subscribe to my YouTube channel, Your Message, Your Way, where we look at little things that you can do to make your message heard in an increasingly noisy and cluttered world. Or fill out the contact form at theprairiesoul.com/consulting and get in touch. Let's talk. What can we do to make your message meaningful and memorable? Till then, tell your story.